Just living that life on Dutch Coke.
Hi everybody, we are sharing stories of the community this Pride, and I'm here with Chris Grave, an incredible makeup artist. He's actually going to be hosting the whole of the series, but I just really wanted to interview him first because he has some great stories, don't you?
Thank you.
You're an incredible makeup artist. Your style is so cool as well.
Tell us you would say that. You literally look like me right now.
Yeah, we are actually twinning by accident. But tell me a little bit about how you got into makeup, how you got into style, like how you really found that kind of personal style.
I feel like for me, my style is like always changing. Fashion is supposed to be fun, makeup's supposed to be fun. It's all about being playful. So the more you try, the more you kind of figure that out along the way.
Yeah. In terms of like that moment where you're like, right, I'm gonna do this like out there makeup look. When was that, do you think?
COVID was really a time where I could really like just fully express myself exactly how I wanted to, and it was the first time I started really getting into like club kid drag.
Love it.
And that was kind of like my awakening, where I was like, okay, wait, this is like really fun. I really enjoy doing this. And then it just kind of transitioned into what it is now.
Yeah, that's amazing. Talking about club kids, drag, let's talk about Pride. What does Pride really mean to you?
I think Pride to me is like such a strong sense of community. It's like a sense of safety, where I don't know, I just always felt like the community embodies this like heart for people who are different, and that's always what it's been for me. So,
an acceptance, like you can find people who are like your people.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a space for everybody to take up like however much space they want.
I love that. How are you going to be celebrating Pride this year?
I think I'm going to be celebrating Pride the way I would usually celebrate. I think I'm just going to be doing my educational bits, being a protestive girl.
Love it.
Standing up for my community and showing up authentically as myself.
I love
that. I do that every day. I do that every day, you know what I mean?
Pride is every day.
Pride is every day, every month, every year, 365, 24/7. But it's, just going to be doing me.
Okay, so in terms of the LGBTQIA plus community, how have you kind of felt supported by them and like felt like it was a bit of a network for you?
When I moved to London, there is so much queerness here. There's such a queer space for people to like really take up all of that room.
Yeah.
And I've always found that, especially here, there's a lot of like older queer people that have so much to like teach me, and I have so much to learn from them, and just their experiences and how they navigate the industry even, that I've always found like super inspiring. I think London's one of those places in the UK where I feel like you can be successful no matter what. So it's really nice to have come here and be surrounded by so many like queer, incredible talent, because it's kind of shown me that, oh, like I can also unlock that within myself and kind of be part of that process for other people too. In the world that we live in, it's so easy to forget how hard it was before now to be who we are.
Yeah.
And so it feels like it just feels like something that everyone should be doing, like educating themselves on who came before us, what came before us, and how we can also use that now in current society to protest in a new way.
Yeah, because I feel like there's still the same issues now.
Yeah.
It just kind of looks a little different. It's a bit more covert, isn't it? It's
Exactly.
a bit more underground, but it still exists. Those prejudices still exist. That's why we really love working with Switchboard as well, because like they just announced their like 50th anniversary, and they've kind of gone back in time and like had a look at like all these different moments that were like struggles for them, you know, and the points where people were really like calling up and like, you know, their helplines were like bursting with people, you know, asking for advice, because it's like those issues back then, but you know, you were still finding from them, like the information we're getting from them, that there's still, you know, loads of issues. It's just maybe it looks a little different, or
It's nuanced now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like embedded into small things or into microaggression that manifests itself in different ways than it once did. And yes, it doesn't look the same, but I think it definitely feels the same.
Definitely. And I feel like with social media as well, you've got the keyboard warriors who just,
Exactly.
you know, they go online and they think, I can just say what I like. I mean, you're huge on TikTok and on Instagram. How do you find navigating, like, if you were to get like comments that were a bit hateful, or like how do you kind of like cope with that?
To be honest, I think For a while, it's very hard to not internalize that stuff. I think when you're growing up on social media, you're always going to internalize it a little bit. As I aged, I think I just grew really thick skin. Like I kind of got to a point where my confidence was like my biggest asset to myself, and just in a way where I was like showing up super authentically as myself, to the point where comments like that no longer bother me because I have my own purpose. I have my own reason for doing the things I do, and in the same way that people pioneered that space for me, I feel like it's important for me to take up that space like naturally, without concern, without fear, because it's kind of like my job. Do you know what I mean?
What do you think is a key concern at the moment for the queer community that isn't really being addressed as much as maybe you would like, or you feel like is not really being talked about?
I feel like even though we touch on them, I think microaggressions have a lot bigger of an effect than one would believe. I think, yes, like a singular microaggression is just that. But then when that becomes 5 microaggressions in a week, 7 in a month, 10 in a month, whatever it may be, that has a massive effect on your internal like dialogue, the way you speak to yourself, the way you show up for yourself, and the way you show up for others. And I think that's one of the hardest parts about being queer is dealing with that all the time, and then continuing to like actively choose to pick yourself back up and actively choose to kind of make that situation be like water off a duck's back. It has to just flow off.
I think it's just so easy sometimes for people to think something hateful in their head and type it. It takes like a few seconds, but it's that kind of comment that would sit with you for, you know, days, weeks, potentially, if you're having.
For myself, it's not something that affects me in my day-to-day. I think it's more so the youth of today. Like dealing with such a heavy social presence, as well as the freedom of speech that everyone chooses to take upon themselves, and sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. And so I think when you're so young, trying to navigate who you are, trying to figure out who you are, and then also have other people trying to tell you who that is at the same time, I think can be very distressing, especially when it comes to sexuality and gender and gender expression. I think we already have such strong identifiable labels. It's like, how do we continue to break that so that other people don't feel so obliged to conform?
The most important question of the day: who is your LGBTQIA plus icon and why?
I'm so glad you asked me, because I've been waiting for this question. My LGBTQIA plus icon is Marsha P. Johnson, and the reason why is because, first of all, to be a pioneer at the young age of 23,
Which is your age, right?
My age.
That's your age.
This is what I was thinking. I was like, to be so strong and so versed in a community at such a young age, to the point where you are so actively sorting out that space and making that space safe for everybody, is like such a difficult thing to take on, such a massive burden. But without Marsha, it's like, would we have what we have today? You know what I mean? And even in current society, to be a pioneer in any space, to be someone that breaks tradition, breaks mold so heavily, and stands by that like the whole way, I think is so ridiculously commendable. That there are so many people that I could have chose in this situation, but I think the only one that really stood out was Marsha. I think even in our current society, we need to continue to be like really actively being those people, really actively sorting for that change ourselves. And like, if that means that we have to be that pioneer in that space, then let's like do it.
And that's why Pride is so important still, because it's not just about, you know, the kind of Pride campaigns or the floats. It's also about just being able to express yourself, talk freely without prejudice, and just really support each other and like, you know, find new people in the community to kind of connect with. So
I agree, and I think with what you said about Pride, like Pride will never not be important. Like we've always had this debate every single year that's like, okay, Pride again, do we really need another one? And it's like, what do you mean? Like now more than ever, we need Pride. Because I don't think people understand how much power it takes to show up in the little ways for yourself, show up in the small ways of pride. And sometimes even leaving the house for some people is pride, because pride is so subjective to everyone, and everybody experiences that so deeply and so differently.
That's why it needs to be talked about. And you know, like, I mean, for us, we always want to work with, you know, everyone from all walks of life, because I just feel like with makeup, it's just about expression, it's just about creativity, it's just about like what makes you feel good, whatever you're wearing, you know. But you know, you've got your key months of Pride, but I think that for me would be where I can imagine somebody as a young person might be like, oh, I went to this event, or I saw this video, or I saw this piece of like educational content online, and that could be a turning point for them. And that's why I feel like we still need it. We still need that kind of rush of content, that like moment.
Yeah, I agree.
On social, because there's so many issues going on at the moment. That's why I think you're saying like we always need Pride, right?
As long as there is one ignorant person in this world, there is always going to be the necessity of Pride. There is always going to be the need to spread awareness, to spread education, to do things like this.
Another really important question. What one song, if you had like one song that was on a Pride playlist, what would that one song be?
I'm just living that life on Dutch classic. You know Charlie XCX, Addison Rae?
Of course.
Oh my god, the Addison Rae remix though.
Yes.
Oh, that scream. So queer. So queer fantasy
I
coded.
love Charlie XCX.
Yay.
Okay, that's a wrap. Woo!
We kind of ate.